I have loved justice and hated iniquity. Therefore, I die in exile. St. Gregory VII. Hello, my friends, and welcome to True Heroes. Yes, I apologize. The last podcast I said today was a feria. That was not true. Not sure what I was thinking or what day I was looking at. So we're going to look at a couple of saints today. St. Gregory VII and St. Urban I. Both popes. Most of this is going to be on Gregory VII because we know very little about Urban I, as is pretty typical for the early saints. Let us begin their stories. Gregory VII was born and named Hildebrand in 1020 in Tuscany. Even as a young boy, he showed a holiness that certainly drew attention to himself. One day when he was a very young boy, he was in a carpenter shop playing, and he saw and started collecting the random pieces of wood on the floor of the shop. He did not know his alphabet or how to spell words at this time, so this was very early on in his life. But regardless, he took those pieces of wood and arranged them to form these words from the Psalms of David, quote, "He shall rule from sea to sea," unquote. As Pope later, he will of course have this power across the world. Educated in Rome, Hildebrand was chaplain to Gregory VI, whose exile he shared. So Gregory VI was exiled at one point, and Hildebrand was exiled with him. When Gregory VI died in 1047, Hildebrand entered a monastery where he remained until Leo IX called him to Rome to serve as the treasurer of the church. Elected Pope himself in 1073, Hildebrand took the name Gregory in honor of St. Gregory the Great and began to institute reforms against the three main plagues of the day in the church. These three evils were simony, so the buying and selling of sacred offices and objects, the unlawful marriage of the clergy, and lay investiture. So lay investiture is when kings and nobles decide who become bishops and such things and taking positions as church officials. To all of these, Hildebrand directed his reformers' attention, first as counselor to the popes and then later as pope himself. Gregory's opposition to lay investiture led to conflict with Emperor Henry IV, who deposed Gregory at a synod in 1076. And of course, Gregory in response promptly excommunicated Henry. The two were later reconciled in 1077 at Canossa, but had another falling out 3 years later. Later, Henry will march on Rome in 1084, and Robert Guiscard rescues the Pope, and they fled to Monte Cassino to escape a popular rebellion against Guiscard. Gregory will die in Salerno in 1085, of course in exile. His last words were the same words that we started this podcast with, quote, "I have loved justice and hated iniquity. Therefore, I die in exile." 30 years later, the church finally won its struggle against lay investiture, and these positions were only delegated from then on out by bishops and cardinals and the Pope himself. Paul V will canonize Gregory VII in 1606. Little is known about St. Urban I, who was elected Pope in 222. He was a Roman and served as Bishop of Rome for almost 9 years. Legends say that Urban baptized Valerian, who was the husband of St. Cecilia. And he also stressed the need to use the alms given to the church to be used for the needs of the church and the poor. Quote, "Things that have been offered to the Lord by the faithful should not be put to any other use than such as is for the benefit of the church, the brethren in the Christian faith, or the poor, because they are offerings of the faithful, the return made for sin, and the patrimony of the poor." Unquote. Urban died in 230 and was buried in the cemetery of Calixtus. He died a martyr, though it is not clear exactly how he was martyred. Considering the fact that he was a Roman citizen, it seems likely that it would have been by beheading. From the lives of Saints Gregory VII and Urban I, we learn to accept our sufferings in peace and patience, using the opportunity to draw closer to God. Urban suffered and died a martyr. Gregory died in exile. Let us offer our own small, in comparison, crosses in union with Christ and their sufferings. Tomorrow, let us make sure I get this right this time, is the feast of Saint Philip Neri, the founder of the Congregation of the Oratory. Until then, God bless you all, my friends. Saints Gregory VII and Urban I, pray for us.